Marriage is meant to be a place of love, safety, and partnership. But when a woman finds herself in a relationship with a narcissistic husband, what should have been a space for growth becomes a battlefield of the heart. Living with a narcissist doesn't always begin with pain. It often begins with charm. He makes promises, paints a picture of a perfect future, and sweeps her off her feet. But slowly, almost invisibly, the relationship shifts. What once felt like love starts to feel like control. What once felt like protection begins to feel like possession. In the beginning, his love feels overwhelming, like the sun shining only on her. He showers her with affection, promises, and attention. She feels chosen, special, adored. But soon she realizes that his love isn't stable. It shifts depending on whether she meets his expectations. If she praises him, agrees with him, or puts his needs first, he rewards her with tenderness. But if she questions him, sets a boundary, or simply has her own opinion, that love vanishes. He may grow cold, distant, or even hostile. This unpredictable cycle conditions her to behave in ways that keep his approval. It's like being trained. Every smile, hug, or kind word becomes a reward for obedience, and every withdrawal of affection feels like punishment. Over time, she learns that his love is not a gift, it's a contract, and the terms are always written by him. The damage is profound. She begins to confuse control with care, fear with love, and obedience with loyalty. And deep down, she starts believing a dangerous lie, that her value depends on how well she keeps him happy. But here's the truth she needs to hear. Real love is never conditional. It does not vanish when you make a mistake, speak your truth, or claim your space. Real love makes you feel safe enough to be fully yourself. At first, his words may sound harmless, small calm, and it's disguised as jokes or helpful advice. Maybe he critiques the way she dresses, the meal she cooks, or the way she speaks in front of others. He says, "I'm just being honest," or "You're too sensitive." But over time, these tiny cuts accumulate into deep wounds. His criticism isn't about improvement, it's about control. By constantly pointing out what she's doing wrong, he keeps her on the defensive. She starts questioning every choice she makes. Will he approve of this? Will this upset him? She edits herself to avoid his disapproval until she no longer recognizes her own voice. Criticism becomes his weapon of dominance. Instead of lifting her up, he chips away at her confidence brick by brick. The tragedy is that she begins to internalize his words, carrying them as truth. She may look in the mirror and no longer see the strong, capable woman she once was. Instead, she sees the flawed version he's trained her to believe. And here's the hidden cruelty. While he criticizes her relentlessly, he often demands admiration for himself. She's expected to highlight his strengths, but he highlights only her weaknesses. But here's the truth she must hold on to. Criticism from a narcissist is never about her worth. It's about his insecurity. Real love does not belittle, mock, or diminish. Real love encourages, supports, and speaks life into the relationship. One of the most confusing and damaging tactics a narcissistic husband uses is gaslighting, the rewriting of reality. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it comes wrapped in calm denial or dismissive laughter. Imagine this. She remembers a hurtful argument where he called her names, but when she brings it up later, he looks her in the eye and says, "That never happened. You're imagining things." Or she recalls a promise he made, but when she asks about it, he insists, "You're making things up again." Slowly, her trust in her own memory begins to erode. Gaslighting isn't just about denying events. It's about dismantling her confidence in her own perception. Over time, she wonders if she's too emotional, too dramatic, or even unstable. She begins to silence herself because she no longer trusts her own voice. This rewriting of reality leaves her living in constant doubt. She second guesses every thought, every feeling, every decision. And that's exactly the point. Because once she stops trusting herself, she has no choice but to lean on him for the truth. It's a clever trap. He becomes the author of her story, editing out her experiences and rewriting them in a way that always makes him the victim and her the problem. But here's the truth. Her reality is valid. Her memory is real. Her feelings are not too much. They are her inner compass trying to guide her back to safety. A man who truly loves will never distort her reality to protect his image. Instead, he will honor her truth and stand with her in it. One of the most subtle yet powerful strategies of a narcissistic husband is isolation. He knows that the more connected she is to friends, family, or a support system, the harder it will be to control her. So step by step, he begins to pull her away from the people who remind her of who she truly is. At first, it may look like care. He might say, I don't think your friend is a good influence on you, or your family doesn't really understand us. Other times, it's disguised as love. Why don't you just stay home with me? I miss you when you're gone. What seems protective is really possessive. Over time, her world becomes smaller. Phone calls to loved ones grow less frequent. Outings become rare. And when she does try to connect, he may criticize her for choosing others over him, making her feel guilty for wanting healthy relationships outside of the marriage. This isolation leaves her vulnerable. Without outside voices affirming her worth, she begins to believe his narrative. Without a community to lean on, she feels trapped, like he is her only source of belonging. And that is exactly what he wants, to make her dependent, to ensure that she has nowhere else to turn. A marriage should be a partnership, two people walking side by side, sharing responsibilities, dreams, and decisions. But with a narcissistic husband, the balance shifts. He doesn't want a partner. He wants control. It often begins in subtle ways. Maybe he insists on handling the finances because he claims she's not good with money. Or he makes the final decision about where they live, what they buy, or even who they spend time with, framing it as what's best for us. On the surface, it may look like leadership, but beneath it, there's a hunger for power. Control seeps into everyday life, what she wears, how she spends her time, even how she expresses herself. He finds ways to monitor, correct, or dictate. Sometimes it's overt through commands or demands. Other times it's quieter through guilt, manipulation, or making her feel foolish for wanting her own way. This isn't protection, it's possession. He doesn't want a wife with her own voice. He wants a shadow that reflects his own desires. The tragedy is that she may start confusing this control with care, believing he's just looking out for her, when in reality he's stripping away her autonomy piece by piece. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't need control. A healthy marriage thrives on respect, compromise, and shared power. True partnership celebrates individuality while building unity. Control suffocates love, but partnership allows it to grow. Silence is one of the sharpest tools in a narcissistic husband's arsenal. Unlike yelling or arguing, this weapon is quiet, but it cuts just as deeply. When she disagrees with him, sets a boundary, or dares to speak her truth, he may not shout, he simply withdraws. The cold shoulder begins. He stops talking, avoids eye contact, and acts as if she doesn't exist. Days may pass where she feels invisible in her own home. The silence is suffocating, leaving her to spirate for any sign of warmth. This tactic isn't accidental, it's punishment. By refusing to engage, he forces her into a corner where the only way to end the discomfort is to apologize, even when she's done nothing wrong. Over time, she learns the unspoken rule: don't upset him or you'll be shut out. The cruelty of this silence is that it teaches her to fear abandonment. It makes her question her worth because the message is clear. You don't deserve my love, my words, or my presence unless you submit. But here's the truth. Silence in love should never be used as a weapon. Space can be healthy. Taking time to cool down can be wise. But deliberate emotional exile is abuse. Real love communicates. Real love works through conflict with respect and honesty. Real love never makes you feel erased. A narcissistic husband has an endless appetite for admiration. He thrives on praise, attention, and validation, like fuel that keeps his ego alive. He wants to be admired for his achievements, his looks, his intelligence, or even for doing the bare minimum in the relationship. And when admiration doesn't flow freely, he sulks, complains, or lashes out. But here's the painful imbalance. While he demands constant affirmation, he rarely gives it back. When his wife cooks a meal, supports his goals, or sacrifices for the family, he barely acknowledges it. Instead of gratitude, she gets silence. Instead of encouragement, she gets criticism. This creates an emotional drought for her. She pours love, energy, and affirmation into him, but in return, her cup is left empty. She feels unseen, unappreciated, and invisible. Over time, she may even start to believe she doesn't deserve praise, that her worth lies only in how well she props him up. The tragedy here is that marriage is meant to be mutual, a space where both partners uplift one another, celebrate each other's wins, and see each other's efforts. But with a narcissistic husband, it becomes a one-way street. He takes but rarely gives. He expects to be the center while she fades into the background. But here's the truth. Admiration should be reciprocal. Real love doesn't drain one partner to fill the other. It flows both ways. A healthy relationship is built on recognition, gratitude, and mutual celebration. Anything less is not love. It's exploitation. One of the most exhausting patterns in a relationship with a narcissistic husband is the constant shifting of blame. No matter what happens, he finds a way to make it her fault. If he shouts, he says she provoked him. If he withdraws, he claims she's too demanding. If he cheats, he argues it's because she didn't make him feel appreciated. This blame shifting keeps her in a constant state of guilt. She begins to replay arguments in her head, wondering if she really did say the wrong thing or cause the outburst. Over time, she stops holding him accountable and starts holding herself responsible for his moods, his actions, and even his cruelty. What makes this cycle so devastating is that it convinces her that he is the victim and she is the problem. Instead of seeing his behavior for what it is, abuse, she internalizes it as a reflection of her own shortcomings. It's like carrying a weight that was never hers to carry, but one he placed on her shoulders to keep her bent and silent.